Next, we have the first presentation. The title is X-SiT, inherently interpretable surface vision transformers for dementia diagnosis. The presenter is Fabian Bongratz from Technical University of Munich.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning. My name is Fabian Bongratz. I'm a PhD student at Technical University of Munich, and it's my pleasure to present our work on surface-based interpretable diagnosis of dementia. I'm sure that most of you are aware that dementia is a clinical syndrome that is characterized by progressive decline in cognitive function. Each year, millions of people are affected and suffer from severe limitations in their daily life. From a neuroanatomical point of view, many types of dementia are characterized by distinct morphological changes in the brain. For example, on the slide you can see the pattern of cortical thinning in the cerebral cortex, which is due to the loss of neurons in these regions. However, most interpretable methods for medical image analysis are image-based. And as you can see on this image, which I got from an explainable method for Alzheimer's prediction, the model looks at many parts of the image, but not necessarily at the cortex. And this makes it difficult for us as a human to follow or understand the model's decision-making and ultimately to assess whether we can trust its prediction. Instead, cortical surface maps, for example, cortical thickness, provide us very interpretable maps and quantitative biomarkers of cortical morphology. And in our work, we bridge this gap and we developed a model that can actually provide explanations based on these interpretable surface maps. The concept that we're building upon is the so-called prototypical reasoning. For those of you not familiar with this concept, I will briefly introduce it. So let's assume we have this image of a red bird, and we would like to know which species this bird belongs to. Then a reasonable approach would be to compare our image to a labeled dictionary of bird images, and we can search for similarities, and then we might find the image of a northern cardinal bird, which also has this characteristic black mask and the red feathers. And this gives us then like a very informed decision about our test sample. In this context, these reference images are usually called the prototypes, and we would get them in practice as a representative sample from our training set. Now the core idea of our approach is to transfer this concept to cortical surfaces so that we can reason in a similar manner, and that we can actually make a decision by comparing individual brain regions to a prototype which could represent Alzheimer's disease, and then have an interpretable decision by the model. Next, I will walk you through the implementation of this idea in our method, which we call the Explainable Surface Vision Transformer, or X-SiT briefly. And for this, we will first assume that we already have a very good prototype, but we will get back to this in a second. We begin by inflating the cortical mesh to a sphere to get a common spherical reference coordinate system, and from this we can extract corresponding patches from the input surface and the prototype. This is then useful because we can use it as an input to the so-called surface vision transformer. This is a dedicated surface transformer model developed for cortical surfaces, and it gives us corresponding patch embeddings then for the input surface and also for the prototype. And now at the heart of our approach, we compare these patch embeddings with the cosine distance to get a measure of local similarity. And similar to the bird image, we obtain these prototypes from real samples from our training set via iterative optimization. Next, we equip our model with the ability to reweight the individual similarities, and the intuition behind that is that not all regions in the brain might be equally important for the diagnosis of a certain type of dementia. So the model can actually learn to give higher importance to certain regions that are maybe more important or more discriminative than others. Finally, we sum the weighted similarities and we obtain a class probability score and the entire decoding from the patch embeddings to the classification score. We call this block the prototypical surface patch decoder. Now, to benchmark this approach, we consider two diagnostic tasks. The first is diagnosis of Alzheimer's disease, the most common form of dementia. For this, we used around 700 scans from the ADNI. And as a second task, we also considered frontotemporal dementia. This is a little bit less common form of dementia, but still severe. And for this, we obtained 67 cases from the NIFD. As input features, we use cortical thickness, circle depth, and curvature. And these were obtained from the original MRI scans with FreeSurfer. We compare our approach to 3 established architectures for registered mesh data. And in addition, we also implemented an interpretable baseline method where we use a neural tree decoder in addition to the SiT. So this is called SiTNet. This is inspired by a computer vision method that also makes the transformer interpretable. Now, if we look at the quantitative results, we find that the original surface vision transformer yields the highest accuracy with around 80% on the test set. So this balanced accuracy for both tasks. But if we look at the interpretable methods, our approach clearly outperforms the neural tree decoder, and we actually obtain a balanced accuracy on the test set that is almost on par with the original SILT model. So we almost pay no price for the interpretability. But in addition to the prediction, we also obtain several explanations. So when we recall our architecture, we can, for example, look at the weighted similarities, which provides some explanation about the decision-making of our model. And if we aggregate those across all the frontotemporal dementia cases in our test set, these are the maps that we obtain. This makes actually sense because the large parts of the frontal lobe that is highlighted here, and also a little bit of the temporal lobe, these are the characteristic of this type of characteristic regions of this type of disease, and very established in the literature. For Alzheimer's disease, we obtain a little bit different maps, but again, large parts of the temporal lobe and also the junction between the temporal and the parietal lobe are highlighted, and this is again very reasonable, and we can well understand the decision-making of the model, which corresponds to the literature. So to sum it up, we developed an interpretable model for surfaces, cortical surfaces. We obtained very competitive performance to the non-interpretable baselines, and we obtain human understandable explanations. If this now sparked your interest, I would also like to invite you to 2 more works from our group that we will present on Saturday at the workshops on cortical surfaces. And yeah, thank you, and looking forward to the questions.
Thank you for the presentation.